Hey, what's going on, everybody? Chris here, Jordan
Jordan
there.
here.
Today, we're going to be talking about why warm leads are ghosting you when you send your links. Really just dive into what are leads, what are warm leads considered, what should we do with those leads, what's the best approach, and all that kind of stuff. So put a document together. We're going to be sharing our screen, and we'll just jump right into it.
So the biggest problem that we've been seeing people have based on the conversations that we've had is that people will say, oh, okay, like I'm getting people to comment under my post. They're raising their hand with interest in regards to my offer. But once I like send them over the offer inside Messenger, they reply back. They say, oh, I can't afford this. Now is not a good time for me. Or people are just simply getting ghosted after they send over the offers. And a lot of people, when they go through this situation, they believe that all their prospects that do this, they just want free information. There's some that's going on in communication, especially after the offer link is sent, that's causing them to ghost. And even if they follow up, they don't really hear anything back from their prospects. So we know just from our experience that there's something that's going on in the conversation that's messing this up. And I will say that just because your prospects are doing this doesn't mean that they are low quality leads, they're hire kickers or freebie seekers.
So if you guys look over here, the false belief is like they're low quality leads, just like Jordan said, right? They said they want my offer, and then as soon as I put it in front of them, like they're just tire kickers. They just want freebie information. And that may be the case. It could also be the way that you're positioning your content. But majority of the time, it doesn't really mean they're a low quality lead, because the reality is that they're interested, but that doesn't automatically equal buyer. Interested doesn't automatically mean I want whatever you've got. This is why it's important to really understand how to actually position your content on your profile versus inside your group and all that kind of stuff. But oftentimes people, what happens is they get excited, right? And I always give the analogy of fishing. If you ever guys have ever been fishing, you will sit there with your line in the water and you'll feel anything. You're just always pulling up and coming up with nothing. Same thing here, right? You're fishing too eagerly and too hard. And so when somebody's like, oh, I'm interested, you start rushing these interactions and display a lot of neediness. And when really, at the end of the day, it has to be the prospect's idea to really want it. Granted, you're putting the idea out there in their head, but that doesn't mean the decision hasn't been fully made. You need to slow down and evaluate the situation first. That's a really simple thing. By just easing up is what we call it in our frameworks. And you're literally just being like, hey, thanks for showing interest. Before I actually like throw this out in front of you, I want to make sure it's actually relevant to you. Can you let me know what the situation is? Simple as that. That would be a really simple fix to actually get the conversation going in a place where by the end of it, they actually have urgency to want it. So again, reality is interested doesn't automatically equal buyer. So if you think you have a bunch of low quality leads, double check yourself on that one. Okay. Because oftentimes it's not the lead, it's us and the way we're interacting. So we'll move on to defining a lead and a warm lead.
When it comes to a lead, we look at a lead as someone that gives us something to leverage, like an email. Maybe they like subscribe to a YouTube channel, or like they join our Facebook group, for example, and they simply allow us to leverage an opportunity to keep nurturing them in our world and even eventually sell them something that they may be looking for, depending on what they're trying to do. And then as far as like a warm lead, we more so look at warm leads as people that have already had some type of personal interaction with us. To a degree, they know what we have to offer in order to help them. And they given us some type of intel in regards to their situation. And this can be about like their goals, struggles, past attempts, etc. But we more so look at warm leads who have an idea of what we do, like how we help people, like what our offer is about, based on usually what we're talking about in our content, our live streams. And usually we've had some type of more personable interaction with them inside of Messenger. And that's how we look at warm leads, people that made some type of micro investment and have had some type of interaction with us along the way.
So you're going to have outbound and inbound leads. Okay. There's cold outbound and there's warm outbound. And then when it comes to inbound, there's going to be cold, warm, and hot from inbound. Okay. And the way we define those is based off of the scenario itself. But we really care about the warm inbound. Okay. There are scenarios such as like a warm outbound where it's more so like somebody raising their hand at your content, but you've never actually had an interaction with this person. That's still a cold interaction, but it's a little warm because of where they're coming from. And so that scenario needs to be treated differently versus a warm inbound where they maybe had one interaction with you via DM, they've checked out your content, they've watched training. There's a little bit more of a relationship built and established that maybe still isn't going to lead to a sale right away, but it can lead to a much deeper relationship, which can lead to a sale. Okay. So I'm going to go ahead and show you the false belief here. The false belief is that people that engage with content are warm leads. And just like I explained in that scenario, that's not always the case, because you get a hand raiser, you try and have the conversation and send the link, and then they disappear. It's because there wasn't actually a relationship built. That's a cold lead at the end of the day. Cold warm, meaning they've had enough relationship with to have interest in what you're talking about and what you're offering maybe, but not enough with you as the person or the exact game plan you have or anything like that. Okay. So the false belief is people that engage with content are warm leads, and that's not always the case, right? The reality is taking an action to be a part of your world is a warm lead. Okay. Somebody that you have had a hand raiser, you had a conversation, and you've taken them now to the next step of being a part of your world, whether that's your group or whatever way that you warm people up. It could be a website, your email list, whatever it is. You just take them to that next step. And now they're a lot warmer. Why? Because you've gotten an email at least, right? If you at least are following what we do inside any of the content we make or the courses that we make, where we talk about setting up group questions, you should be getting an email. And if you get an email, guess what? Now you have leverage, and that is now a lead. If we defined lead up here, it is someone that gives you something to leverage and opportunity to keep nurturing in your world and sell them on something. And email is considered part of that. Okay. So you can see the difference of somebody raising their hand at your content, not giving you anything to leverage, and you calling that warm, and then they ghost you because it wasn't warm. They weren't actually warm. Versus somebody that raises their hand at your content, you then have an interaction with them, you take them to your world, and now you get an email. Now you have leverage. Now they are actually in your world. That's a lot more of a warm scenario. Okay. So I think defining those scenarios is super important. So bring them into your Facebook group, your email list, your free content, free course, whatever it is that you have. And that is what's really going to get you to have a warm lead that you actually know is warm. Okay. So far, what we've done is we've established the problem, and the kind of the false belief is, oh, I just have a low quality lead. Now we understand, okay, maybe I don't have low quality leads. I just don't have a lead that's warm yet. Right. So now that we have warm leads, or maybe we're having trouble getting warm leads, let's talk about the why.
Okay, why is the ghosting occurring, especially if you're talking to warm leads? And there's a few reasons why this is happening. So if we're going to start from the content side of things, usually what's going on in the content is that you're not necessarily pre-selling people on their pain points, their challenges, what they're struggling with in their business, a new solution or a better game plan, aka your offer that's better than what they currently have at the moment, and what can also solve those problems, right? In a more efficient, more effortless, more leverageable way. As well as you may not even be selling people exactly on who you are as a person, like creating content around you, like your own viewpoints, your own beliefs, even like things that you're doing outside of business, like what's your lifestyle like? It doesn't mean you have to be traveling or doing anything like fancy or extravagant, but are you family man or woman? Like, what are your hobbies? Just stuff like that, just building a personal brand and showcasing people who you are outside of business. And overall, even not being afraid to like even pre-sell people on what the investment would look like to join your offer, whether it's indirect or directly. Like you could directly say, hey, my offer is $1,500, or that's more of a direct approach, or an indirect way of doing that is saying, oh, my offer is multi four figures. And that leads me to the DM side of things, is that part of why your content isn't necessarily pre-selling people to the best way that it could is because you may not exactly know what people in the market are dealing with or what they're struggling with, for them to then see like what your solution is to solve those problems. So for example, how would we know that people are struggling when it comes to having conversations with warm leads, and then they send out an offer and then they get ghosted? How would Chris and I know that? We didn't guess it. We didn't just imagine it. We didn't just make this up. we've had a lot of conversations with people in the market to know that this is one of their issues. This is one of the things that they're struggling with business. And we're literally doing it, like we're practicing what we preach. We're literally creating content talking about this very issue because we've had conversations with people to know that this is an issue for them and that we have the solution to solve that, right? Like our 6-figure messaging secrets course. And part of the reason why we're also seeing that people aren't closing is because maybe how you come off in your content is incongruent with how you come off in your messaging. Because really, as far as like how do you conduct a conversation, you want to conduct a conversation in a way that builds and maintains rapport. Number one, that's very important. Number two, you want to establish a leadership kind of frame in the conversation. Like it needs to be known without it being said verbatim that you're the leader and the authority of the conversation. You, of course, want to ask relevant questions that aren't aimless. Like there's like reasons why you're asking the questions that you're asking. And also, too, but also what we really been seeing is that the way that people position their offer, they're rushing it too quick. A lot of people aren't qualifying the people that they're speaking with enough. They're not really forming the offer to what the specific person needs based on their goals, based on their struggles. And they're just overall, they're rushing the process. They're getting a little bit too needy. And that's where things are starting to fall apart from what we've seen. And really, the best way to get people to tip over the edge, especially if they're coming from your content, is number one, the way that you conduct yourself in your content that needs to match up with how you conduct yourself in Messenger. But you also need to build up that urgency for people to hop into your offer by building up like an emotional and even a logical investment in the conversation itself. Like people have to feel a need and desire to want to look at your offer, number one, and then hop into it. And if you're able to do those things, and you're going to see a dramatic success rate as far as people that actually look at your offer docs or go to your landing page or however you're presenting your offer and then actually tipping over the edge if you know how to do this the right way.
And the thing is too, is to think about is everybody wants to do that in their content. But Jordan said earlier, like it has to match the vibe on a personal level too. You can't do all these things that we're talking about, having a nurturing process, building urgency through emotional, logical investments and stuff like that. A lot of people want to do that inside their content, which is great. But then when they talk to the person, like none of that is actually happening in real life, in real time. And that could be a reason why people are like, these things aren't congruent with each other. And is this person just saying rhetoric in theory? Or are they actually exercising these things? Does that actually show when I actually interact with this person? You can really tell that stuff. And so this is why it's super important to get your communication dialed in, guys. It's super important. Like you have to get this dialed in, or else it's not only going to not reflect in your conversations, but how is it going to reflect to your content as well? So you got to really think about that stuff. So as far as the content goes, going back to this, right? So your communication is off. Your communication is off in your content, and your communication can be off in your content because your communication off is in your DM. All right. So the false belief here with the content is that people often think of this as a matter of quantity over quality. And so the reality is it's not about how much you put out as far as content. Like people think, just keep putting out content, just put it out 5 times a day on here, on there. And it's not so much about that versus what the actual quality of that content is. So it's not about how much you put out, but the quality of what you put out that produces a result. And so when we talk about pre-selling on pain points, a new solution, you as a person, your offer, and what the investment would be to get that, all of that stuff is relevant, okay, and can cater to actually building out quality content. And if you can conduct a quality conversation, then you will have that information, okay? So with the conversation, the DM part, the false belief is that the leads are low quality, right? We've already established that. They're freebie seekers or tire kickers. They don't believe in investing in themselves, and they're not serious about business, right? These are all things we've literally heard people say to us inside Messenger, right? Because everyone will say, I have all these warm leads, and then they're just not, they're ghosting me. It's what makes you think they're a warm lead? And oftentimes they raise their hand. Okay, so if they're warm and they're not converting, then what do you think it is? What do you think the reason is? And the reasons they say, this is you guys, by the way, my leads are low quality. They're just freebie seekers. They're tire kickers. And you know what? They don't actually believe in investing in themselves, and they're not serious about their business, right? That's why you're getting ghosted. It's because it's a them, not me mentality that you have. Okay. You have to get around this, and you need to understand that if somebody says they're interested, or if they raise their hand, they're raising it because something resonated with them enough to want to do that. But if you just try and pitch them right away or send a link right away without any relationship being developed or nurtured or anything, of course you're going to think they're these types of people. So the reality is, get your communication down pat, and you will simultaneously solve your content and sales issue and realize you're most likely sitting on a thriving business. You most likely could have closed those tire kickers and low quality leads had you have gotten this dialed in. Okay. So it's really important to do that. And if you guys need help with that, you guys can check out our masterclass in here. You guys can check out the conversation breakdowns. All that stuff will help you get a clear picture of what we're talking about here. But ultimately, basically, if you have good conversations and you get good with them, guess what it'll do? It'll have you never worrying about lead quality again. It'll create an abundance of inbound leads and sales with ease. It'll build a personal brand that stands out in the marketplace. It'll produce and leverage results to show that you're an authority in the space. It'll convert leads within 2 to 6 weeks instead of 6 to 12 months. You'll never take a discovery or strategy call ever again. And you'll close in DMs every time and never have to get on a sales call. Get good at conversations, get good at talking with people, get good at communicating with people in your market. That's what will solve all those issues. Okay. If you want warm leads that are going to close, you have to get good at this communication. So that's pretty much what we wanted to go over. That's if you guys are having trouble with warm leads, first understand your problem. First of all, understand how to define a lead. What is a warm lead? And why is this happening?
At the end of the day, guys, because I know content is a big thing in the space. Like content is the most leverageable way as far as building a personal brand, letting people know who you are as a person, what you have to offer, how you help people, etc. But it's not just so much about creating content and writing a post and just throwing it out there and throwing it out there as much as possible, and then just sitting back waiting and just waiting for people to reach out to you. As far as creating the most effective content that's truly going to sell, that's truly going to generate you high quality, serious inbound leads, content that you create based on theory is not going to sell. It's the content that's based around fact, that's based on your interactions with people, based on your own experiences, based on the results that you generate for yourselves, the results that you've helped generate for other people if you have your own offers. Creating content that stems from your conversations is what's really going to create the type of content that's going to generate you the type of leads and sales that you want. That's how we were able to achieve everything that Chris just listed out, is based on our conversations. We allow the conversations to fuel our content. We allow the conversations to create our assets, right? This is what we're doing right here. Like, just being honest, like this is an asset for us. So like when people come, this is going to help them when it comes to getting more clarity and more value as far as like why they're getting ghosted inside Messenger, especially if they're talking to warm leads. And if people want to receive our help and they want to hop into the 6-figure messaging secrets course, maybe after even just seeing this live stream, I don't know, we have this asset to present to them to showcase we know what we're talking about. And they may hop in and work with us at a higher level. But we wouldn't have been able to do this had we not had conversations with people in the market, right? And this is how we were able to achieve all this stuff down here. So I'm really just reiterating and just driving home. Once you get more dialed in with your conversations, you'll see that everything else that you do from there, your content, the leads that you generate, the sales that you generate, they're going to be a lot more dialed in, and they're going to become more and more effortless and even more leveraged the more you dial in your communication. That's what we've seen, at least.
Yeah, honestly, guys, if you just dial in your DMing, you'll actually compress the time frame that it makes to close a sale. That's why I said converting leads within 2 to 6 weeks instead of 6 to 12 months, because a lot of people they're relying solely on their content, and there's nothing wrong with that. Content does convert, but when you are speaking directly with the people in the market and exactly listen, you're literally hearing it from the horse's mouth, as the saying is. When you have that and you create content around that, how do you think more powerful that's going to be? And on top of that, you then have the conversation skills to back that up. how much faster do you think you're going to convert a sale or get people to your group and all that kind of stuff? So that's why we're saying not only will you not have to worry about the lead quality again, but you'll actually convert them a lot faster. And we've just seen this time and time again. And you guys can, by the way, like you can go through our conversation breakdowns as well and see the different scenarios that we present where we're exercising the stuff that we're talking about as far as like the conversations go and converting like $5,000-$7,000 sales within a day or so. So that just goes to show that we know what we're talking about when it comes to this stuff. And I would just, if you can make this tweak, you would probably get $5,000 to $10,000 a month a lot sooner. So that's pretty much it. Hopefully this training was awesome for you guys and you guys got a lot out of this.